Freek-A-Leek, a Crunk Alumni's Life of Crime, Ciara, Suge Knight, and Death Row, Petey Pablo. Let's take some calls from the request line. Caller number 1. Hey man, what's up? This is Suge from the RJ Donovan Correctional facility. Known for his lit 2003 club smash hit, Freek-A-Leek, Petey Pablo had the club scene on fire during the early days of the Crunk era takeover. Collaborations with Crunks' hottest artists at the time kept him afloat, and he'd release a couple more singles before run-ins with the law. And the ever-intimidating Suge Knight completely knocked Petey off the radar. So whatever happened to Mr Freek-A-Leek? Raise your hand if you ever felt personally victimized by Suge Knight. You know, for someone who looks like the equivalent to a humanized teddy bear, Suge has definitely made an infamous name for himself. But we ain't here to talk about Sugarfoot and his plentiful goons and his wannabe hood antics. We're here to discuss the life and career of a music artist who I'd say didn't ride his mainstream success to his full ability. Born Moses Mortimer Barrett, way up yonder over in Greenville, North Carolina, began his ascension into hip-hop at the age of 26. Coming off of an armed robbery, 6-year federal prison sentence that began in 1993. Petey, nicknamed after the dog from the Little Rascals, got his start like I'd say a good chunk of black musicians got their start, singing praises to the Lord, even though a lot of y'all still didn't know the Lord was just in that thing just to sing. But we're not here to air out your business. Right away, he knew he had a knack for music. Taking on the last name Pablo from his late friend, some support from his fam served him well, but overall, Moses didn't have that anchor or support to really push him to be his greatest self. Instead of being verbally injected with the right affirmations, he'd hear nonsensical reiterations of "you'll never make it," "you're never going to be nothing," and "you're a terrible kid." Growing up feeling like an underdog was an understatement. By age 13, noticing his mom was in a financial bind, the newly teen up and left the comfort of his Carolina home. Thank God for music. Like many of you, I'm sure, music would be Petey's reality away from reality, his anchor, and now his safe space. Being introduced to rap when he was a junior in high school, his favorite MCs indirectly convinced him to let all that school-ish go. Petey recognized he had entirely way too much talent in his little frame and was gonna use it somehow, some way. He just needed to find a way first. In the words of Young Thug, he just needed the platform. Knowing he wanted to pursue music, he made a plan, jetting off to New York after spending more than half a decade in a penitentiary. But as he was out of there, he was out of it, meeting some very recognizable faces along the way. One being Bad Boy Records' Black Bob, and no other than Busta Rhymes. Rob was just an up-and-coming artist at the time, who'd of course be essentially dropped like a bad habit along with, well, majority of the artists who were once signed, used, and tossed aside from Diddy's Bad Boy label. Rob, Petey, and the gang were all cool by this point. Parties and club outings were a regular occurrence for the crew, and one night while out and about at a club, Rob and them had gone to the bathroom, while Petey was somewhere else doing whatever he was doing. Eventually, Petey had found Rob in the bathroom. It was here Rob convinced Petey to drop a bar or two, which Petey did. Long and behold, a man comes in the bathroom while Petey is spitting that fire, and the man who walks in just so happens to be no other than Dave Lighty, Jive Records A&R. At the time, he was blown away by Petey's talent and offered him a deal right there on the spot. Now signed to Jive, one of the biggest labels at the time, Petey was on cloud 9,000 and immediately began working on his debut album, Raise Up. His debut studio single was released in the summer of 2001, paired off with industry goats like the one and only super producer named after New York's favorite steppers, Timbaland. Petey was being paired with the best of the best, including the likes of Mystical, known for his hit single, Shake It Fast, and Sticky Fingers, known for whatever he's known for. Okay, maybe those weren't the best examples of Petey being paired with the best, but stick with me. If you're one of the people watching and thinking to yourself, Petey had more than one song? Yes, he did. Raise Up, with the help of urban radio and MTV, reached number 25 on Billboard's Hot 100. After Timbaland gave him the instrumental, Petey, on a long drive from North Carolina to New York, noticed a helicopter in the sky that appeared to have been following him. What started as a joke and initially turned down by Jive Records turned into the main source of inspo for his first ever debut single. Raise Up had everybody ready to knock a sucker out by waving our shirts, flags, keys, you name it, in the air like a helicopter. Jive were being big haters, telling Petey to his face that North Carolina was as irrelevant as Mystical's career nowadays. But Petey was adamant on putting his home state on the map, paying homage to NC in the song. His studio debut album, Diary of a the Center, released in November of 2001, debuted at number 13, selling over 100,000 copies in just its first week. The album went on to be certified gold by the next month, and it was even nominated for Best Rap Album at Grammys, losing to Eminem's The Eminem Show. He may have lost to pop culture's favorite rapper besides Drake, Wayne, and Nicki, but Petey was still getting his well-deserved recognition, and Coins was now tapping into his acting side. He made his film debut in Nick Cannon's 2002 marching band film Drumline, appearing as himself. Was set to release his second studio album, Still Writing in My Diary, second entry, but it kept getting delayed for unknown reasons. In the meanwhile, Petey hit us with that fire, the banger that keeps on banging, the heavily adored, heavily explicit Lil Jon produced track calling upon all the freaks. How you like it, daddy? Y'all were obsessed and still are. Wanna get the club jumping? Wanna get the party started? Want a random girl to shake a little something? This was the tune for you. Freek-A-Leek will become Petey Pablo's biggest hit single to date, peaking at number 7 and residing on Billboard's charts for over 20 weeks. While his second album was marinating, waiting to see the light of day, Petey kept himself busy, collabing with Will Smith, of all people, on 4 songs. 2004, we finally got our hands on Petey's second album, and surely enough, it did its big one. Its big second one. Debuting at number 4 on the charts, the album overall would end up selling over 100,000 copies in its first week. And like his first project, this too would be certified gold by the RIAA. Petey's reign was not over just yet. After featuring on Ciara's Goodies, he'd achieved even more mainstream success, with the song eventually reaching number 1 on Billboard and staying at that position for a good 7 weeks. As the years went by, Petey was steadily making it work, lending his music to Terrence Howard's Pimp Saga film, Hustle and Flow. Shortly after, Petey seemed to have taken a step back from music altogether, not because the music wasn't selling, but because trouble back at home was brewing. His mother had been diagnosed with a serious illness that needed medical attention, and Petey made sure to be right there by her side every step of the way. By that point, Jive was old news, and Petey set out to create his own music label, Carolina Music Group, releasing a few mixtapes. Sugarfoot Suge and his big bag made his hefty self present in Petey's life, and needless to say, nobody was here for it. Timbaland even had something to say after noticing Sugar Cube hanging around Petey a little too much. Well, it was only down from there. By the time 2010 came around, Petey had filed for bankruptcy not once, but twice, both times dismissed due to his failure to pay his repayment plan to creditors. On his way to that year's MTV VMA Awards, before he got the chance to pull up to the event, he was busted right then and there at the airport for having a Glock in his carry-on, the same one stolen in a 2005 armed robbery. The judge showed him no mercy and sentenced him to almost 3 years behind bars. Being locked up didn't tear him apart from his passion. While the rest of the inmates were having karaoke competitions out in the yard somewhere, Petey did this for real, releasing 2 mixtapes from the pen. Once he was able to touch down on the other side of the prison building, he was back at it again, ready to work on his craft, with Timbaland right there to assist him. But not even a month later, tragedy struck when his mother passed away, succumbing to her illness. With Timbo's help, Petey recorded the track Never Imagined in honor of his late mother. Pablo had been living somewhere off the coast of music's mainstream portals until unexpectedly the past would come back to bite him, and not in the way you may think, a good way. No other than the main himself, Terrence Howard, got in touch with Petey, asked him for his address, and sent him $200. A full circle moment from a moment in 2005. Terrence had invited Petey to the premiere of Hustle and Flow, and during the event, Terrence had unfortunately lost his wallet. Petey, being Petey, lended Terrence $200 for the night, not thinking anything of it. And a whole decade later, here Terrence was, not only returning the loan, but offering Petey something even bigger. Not only did Terrence ask Petey to whip up a couple of songs for Terrence's hit TV show, Empire, but Terrence also wanted Petey to guest star in a few episodes. Petey walked away making over $1,500 and garnering more publicity for himself. A third bankruptcy file was eating his ass up, owing over $200K to creditors, which his $7K a month income wasn't sufficing. But lo and behold, an icy girl would rise from the ashes of caricature hell, giving us back-to-back radio hits. And if you immediately guess Ice Spice, then I'm sorry to inform you, beloved, but that ain't it. Sweetie doing what she does best, Crunks, giving us poorly mixed samples to jam to, gave us the wildly successful My Type in 2019, with the song blowing up everywhere. Millennials and Zillennials immediately recognized the contagious beat right away. Petey even got the opportunity to perform with Saweetie at the 2019 BET Hip Hop Awards. Nowadays, Petey is still focused on his craft, his health, and looking better than ever. Some of his time is now being occupied by his film and production company and love for woodworking, and insists that he was never signed to Suge's Death Row Records, contrary to what some of you believed, and that his third album is still in the works. One thing about Petey, he never wanted or wants to make violence the centerpiece of his creations. Unity and love is what he strives on and what he hopes all y'all watching will strive and thrive off of as well. Will we ever get a Freek-A-Leek Part 2? Let us know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments, and stay tuned for more true celebrity stories.